Let's try to keep our jobs for one more week. All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac, joined by one Matthew Belman as we get ready for Sunday Night Football. The Seattle Seahawks playoff championship implications in this one, or playoff berth implications, because the Seahawks are grinding their way towards the NFC West. And then somehow you have the Packers in a scrum, in an absolute battle for the NFC North. So this is a very important game. Seahawks are 2.5-point underdogs tonight at home. The weather looks okay. It looks like it's going to be in the low 40s, very light breeze, but that tends to happen because they're right by Puget Sound. Does not look like there will be precipitation tonight. It's December in Seattle. It's a 50-50 chance there's a light drizzle at any given time. We live there. I know that. That's why I don't live there anymore. And I'm in sunny Florida. Matt, how are you doing?
I am excellent. Better now that I'm with you. Yeah, this is a good one. Two good teams, two teams with a bunch of players on offense who you like to roster. So decisions are going to have to be made. Should be a fun showdown slate, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this one. I'm having my coffee so I can stay up late. My wife is laughing at me. I came out from the room here because she has some friends in town. They're doing, fun stuff for women. So they're drinking wine, telling stories, and doing crafts and just getting ready for Christmas. So I came out in a long sleeve shirt. She's like, "Why are you wearing a long sleeve shirt? It was 80 degrees today." And I'm like, Seahawks are playing tonight. And I said, it's a rare time I'm going to wear it. But right now it's like, I'm getting kind of, can we turn the air conditioning down a little bit? It's kind of warm in here. So
when you said doing crafts, you almost said doing crack, and it would have been a Freudian slip.
Well, that to them, this is theirs, what they're doing. But they're drinking wine. They had a nice light wine this afternoon, and they had a darker wine with dinner. And now they're going for a walk because they said, we got to clear our heads a little bit because it's a little early to be going to bed. So here we are. All right. So let's get into the fun here. Important things on the inactives. Malik Heath is inactive for Green Bay. Not a shock, but it's one guy that was kind of falling out of the rotation. No surprise he's out with Romeo Doubs back out of the concussion protocol. He missed the last two games. Jair Alexander is still out, as is Javon Bullard. And then they had one other, their nickel back cover nickel was dinged up, but he is going to be playing tonight. Seattle's going to be without Kenneth Walker for a second straight week. We saw what happened with Zach Charbonnet last week, and that was behind that patchwork Seattle offensive line. Remember, they had their center essentially retire. He had been kind of waiver wire fodder anyway, but he sort of retired a few weeks ago. They've made a concerted effort to go back to the run because they were just giving up too many sacks because that's just what Seattle does. Geno Smith had been sacked, I think it was 15 times in the 4 games preceding last week. Last week, he was sacked once, but he has been sacked 40 times on the season. That is tied with Sam Darnold in one behind C.J. Stroud. And then I didn't see what happened with Caleb Williams doesn't play till tomorrow. Caleb Williams is like 53 sacks or somewhere around there. He's leading the league. So those are kind of the big moving parts that we have here, but kickers look okay. Both teams are kind of mirror images of each other. They're willing to throw the ball. Their quarterbacks throw a lot of interceptions, but they'd rather run the ball. So it's kind of a fun one tonight, especially with playoff implications on the line. Matt, let's start off with the Green Bay side here. Your call. Do you go with the running attack, or do you want to talk about Jordan Love and the pass catchers?
Let's talk about the running attack first, because the one thing I forgot to say, it's rare we get a game where both teams have like a true bell cow, and that's what we have here. With Kenneth Walker out, Charbonnet is clearly that guy for Seattle, and Josh Jacobs has been that guy for Green Bay. So, a lot of touches are going to go between those two, and we'll start with the Green Bay running game. I mean, again, you talked about the playoff implications in this game. This is a big game for both these teams. You'd like to see for Josh Jacobs them in a positive game script, but I really don't see it getting into such a negative game script where they're not using Jacobs as much as they'd like to. He's the top piece from Green Bay. He's just so involved, not only in the running game, obviously, but also in the passing game. They've shown this year that they would rather put the ball in his hands, then put it in Love's hands. Not that they don't trust Love, but Jacobs has been that good. So I like him a lot here. Again, as I mentioned at the onset, though, you're going to have to make some decisions because there's a bunch of good players in play on this slate. We know about Green Bay's receivers and that it's murky waters, but they have a bunch of good options. And, Seattle kind of the same thing. So as far as just the running game goes, I think Jacobs is a spectacular play. The only knocks against him are he's the most expensive player on the slate, and there are other really good players to roster. But as far as just him goes, I see nothing wrong with prioritizing him if that's what you want to do. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's kind of where I came in. So I'm going to drop the link to the Sunday Night Football article. Just put that in chat here. Key things to know about that. It is in the article, I have a heavy top 10, and then I always have a second section that's 5. Tonight, I don't. I have 3 in the second section, but my 10th player or my 10th line was Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Jaden Reed, because I don't think any of them belong in that next row. They all have a decent chance of being in the top 10. Vaya con Dios, mis amigos, if you want to know which one's going to be the top 10 player before we get there, which makes it interesting. Brandon Jacobs, we knew that was going to happen. Josh Jacobs is my number 1 player on the board, followed by Zach Charbonnet. Jacobs has 7 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He has 11 rushing touchdowns on the season and his only career passing touchdown. So he has 12 overall. That's top 5 in the league. But that is a Green Bay record, 7 rushing touchdowns in 3 games. And when you think about some of the players they had, Amon Green, who he had 4 or 5 years in the Pro Bowl. He actually started out with the Seahawks, ended up in Green Bay. He's their all-time leading rusher. Remember Aaron Jones, very, very good. Dorsey Levens, for those of you that remember those Brett Favre years. And then
going way back
way back in the day, you've got Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung, who played together back with the Green Bay sweep. And those guys just racked up the touchdowns, but none of them had 7 rushing touchdowns in a 3-game span. So that's pretty good there for Jacobs. The other thing you need to know is it looks like there's a little bit of a shifting of the guard in the secondary running backs here. You have, let me get back up to my notes here. We've got Chris Brooks is playing more snaps now than Emmanuel Wilson. Now, Brooks has bounced around the league. He was on a few different practice squads. He is kind of the pass catching back, if you will. There's with Green Bay's proclivity to not pass and run the ball. Nobody on the team has more than 60 targets, but he is kind of their pass catching back. Jacobs is capable of it, but he still is averaging about 2.9 targets per game. And there are some games where he's getting 0 or 1. Emmanuel Wilson, really not a pass catcher. If something were to happen to Jacobs, he'd probably be the main first or second down running back or to rush the ball. But Brooks seems to have taken over the role, but it's not a big role. Over about 30% of the snaps over the last couple of weeks, Wilson is down to 10%, but you have Jacobs getting obviously the lion's share between 70 and 80% of the snap. They do have some plays where there are 2 backs on the field. It's a little bit rare, but they do that as well. And then last thing I want to mention is Josh Jacobs is 4th in the league with 81 rushing yards per game, which is pretty good. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Joe Mixon are the 3 ahead of him. So we know what Green Bay wants to do. Will they be able to do it? When we talk about the Green Bay passing game, you've got Jordan Love. Now, remember, he missed 2 games early in the season. I believe it was weeks 3 and 4, Matt. So they had Malik Willis, who was not exactly tossing the old pigskin around, and there was a lot of running going on there. Still, Love has, I want to say it's 11 interceptions. Can you believe that? That's a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, that was one of Matt LaFleur is very good, but that might have been his shining moment when he turned Malik Willis into like an actual NFL QB. They went 2-0 with Willis. I know they won in Tennessee and they beat someone at home. I don't think it was someone that good, but still, like, that's impressive.
Yeah, that it's pretty crazy when you see something like that, and then you get all these other quarterbacks that just don't quite make it. And Malik Willis was one of those who wasn't quite making it. Hey, he had a little shining moment, probably got him another 2 or 3 years in the league as a backup. So that's a not a bad way to go. carrying the old clipboard for a couple $1 million a year. Nothing wrong with that. Looking at the pass catcher, so we're going to include the tight ends in this because Tucker Kraft is right around the same workload as Dobbs, Reed, Watson, Wicks, etc. He has to compete with them for targets, but he's the main tight end, right? So while he is competing with those guys for looks, he is the main tight end. So that's helpful for him. Wicks, depending on which site you look at, either has 9 or 8 drops. That is depending on which side, again, you look at, between second and fourth overall in the league. Reed has 7 drops. That is like just inside the top 10. That's crazy that they have all those drops plus the interceptions. This feels like the old school days of the 58% pass completion rate was good. What's going on here, Matt? Who do you like? Because this is a true whack-a-mole situation with these pass catchers. They're all pretty solid. Most of them would be, at least a wide receiver 3, if not a wide receiver 2 on the vast majority of teams in the league. Yet they're just cannibalizing the heck out of each other on a run-first offense.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, very eloquently said, I should say. It's really hard to differentiate between these guys. And as you mentioned, it's not like they're bad. None of them are great. I would say Jaden Reed is the number one, but with how they like to mix and match, and as you mentioned, the run first, it's difficult to say that Reed or any of these guys is an ultimate priority. I think that Green Bay slates, this slate in particular, is a good multi-entry slate just because you can mix and match these guys. Because as you mentioned, they do cannibalize each other. If I were ranking them, I think you could make the case that Dobbs is number one on this slate just because he's the cheapest. Again, I think Reed is the top guy, but the difference between Reed, Watson, Dobbs is small.
Yeah, and even
Wicks.
in the 2 weeks when Dobbs was out, nobody really stepped up. Wicks and Watson were getting all the snaps, and it was Reed that was kind of falling out of favor. So I read a couple articles about that, and essentially Matt LaFleur was like, "Hey, I that one's on me." He said we went to 12 personnel for pass protection, and I didn't have any set packages for Reed to go play wide receiver, and he's like, he can play all positions. So he said, I don't want to see that happen again, because people were saying, oh, it was because he had a drop early in the first quarter on his only catch. And he's like, that's not the case at all. He's one of our best playmakers, right? So, oops, excitement of the game and just things kind of got away. So I think we're going to see him at least with a couple intentional targets, right? Which they should. He's a talented guy. I'd rather see him than Wicks. The other thing you want to remember is he's a pretty good on end arounds and jet sweeps. Last year, he actually lined up as the running back a couple times. This year, with Josh Jacobs being healthy, that hasn't really been the case. But he's averaging about one rushing attempt per game in his career for, I think it's right around 10 yards. And I think he has 4 touchdowns on those 3 or 4 touchdowns, including 1 touchdown this year. So that is, something that's interesting for him. But when everybody's healthy, I mean, remember, gosh, we saw moments with Bo Melton last year down the stretch, and I forget if it was the first round of the playoffs or what have you. We had Wicks pop up here and there. These guys, they run deep. But when everybody's healthy, as Christian Watson has been for most of the year, remember when Romeo Doubs kind of quit for a week? He's back, right? This is just crazy. Only thing they're missing is Aaron Rodgers, right? That'd be the straw that would stir this drink. So
yes, it would.
Anything else that you want to mention about the skill position players here for Green Bay, other than aside from Josh Jacobs? It's very, very flat, and any one of them could get 2 scores tonight.
Yeah, I guess just to go back, I guess that would make me just like Jacobs more, just because he's the guy He's the safe guy, and he's also got the upside. So all in all, Jacobs is already my favorite part of this offense, but I think just going over it more, he stands out, again, even more than I thought.
All right, let's talk about some ways to get some free money. One, you can take on team free money. That would be me. Go to the DK lobby, $1 head-to-heads for Sunday Night Football. Username EMac, check it out. I will tell you what my lineup is here in a bit, but I am going with Josh Jacobs at captain. So that is key. We also have the DraftKings Pick 6 here. So if you guys are in a state where you're lucky enough to have DraftKings Pick 6, you can sign up there and get a deal. Actually, if you go into our little link join landing page here, let me see if I still have that on my copy screen. Jordan will put that up there on the chat. I will get that in there in just a second. I'm sure he will beat me to it, but you could check out all the different ways that you can get 1 month of the Stokastic Sims max package for any single sport, as long as you sign up to one of these sites that you have not yet joined. Now, the deal is you've got to sign up with our links. Okay, don't use the link, you don't get this deal. So that's very, very important. It's always sad when you see people write into support and say, I signed up for this, I never got it. It's like you didn't use the link. So use those links on the page there. Jordan has got that in chat now. Go to the page and you can see 11 different sites that you can join. So all you got to do, if you scroll down to the bottom, you see DraftKings Pick 6. If you click on that, you put in $5. DraftKings is going to get you $50 in Pick 6 credits. And then when you show your screenshot of your welcome email and then a screenshot of your first settled, in that case, Pick'em card, or Pick'em cards to the other site, or sports wagers on the sportsbook sites, send both those screenshots into support@stokastic.com. We're going to get you a free month of Sims for the sport of your choice. Indicate which sport you want. 2 other cool things. 1, you can stack these. If you get haven't signed up for Vivid Picks and Pick 6 and Rebet and whatever, that's 3, right? You can get 3 months of NFL. You could get 3 months of NBA. You could get 2 months of NBA, 1 month of NFL. Whatever you would like to do, we'll get that taken care of for you on the back end. So check that out. Best deal that we have going on right now. Let's see. Team Free Money was looking good last week. I crushed it on the main slate, crushed it on the late slate. You know what I didn't do today? Brian Thomas Jr. Mr. Lindquist put a cash game lineup into his Discord channel. And I said, you know what? I know better. I know better. I probably shouldn't have done that. So no Brian Thomas Jr. for me. Very sad. 10 catches, like what, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very sad.
He was good.
Seattle. All right. So here's the fun things that you need to know about Seattle. Who knew? But Geno Smith actually pretty good. He stepped in for Russell Wilson after he was traded. He ended up setting a Seattle Seahawks franchise record for pass completions while also leading the league in that first season. Surprisingly got Seattle to the playoffs. Last year, they just missed out on the playoffs, and he made his second Pro Bowl with the Seahawks. This year, he's 3rd in the league for passing yards. He is back up close to 70% passing completion percentage. Throwing a few more interceptions than we'd like to see. A lot of sacks, not as many touchdowns, but hey, that yardage isn't bad. Career high 267 or 270 yards per game. That's pretty solid. He doesn't play favorites. He kind of takes whatever the defense is going to give him. So he is in play, kind of a fringe neutral play. He can scramble a little bit. He's nimble in the pocket, but he's only going to run if it's wide open. He's that savvy veteran. He's been in the league for like 10 years now. So you have him, and then rounding out the passing game, because we'll set Zach Charbonnet off to the side here. But Jackson Smith and Jigga leads the team with 102 receptions. He is top 6 or top 9 in most categories in the receiving stats, which is kind of cool. DK Metcalf did miss 2 games. In those 2 games where Metcalf was out, JSN got 20 targets. Okay, so that's boosting him there. But he has been about 8 or 9 targets shy of what Metcalf is when they've played together. So that's pretty good, but it also means Tyler Lockett is a bit of an afterthought these days. So he has fallen out of the rotation. He's definitely the wide receiver 3. He's getting about 4 targets a game. That's right in line with about where Noah Fant is. Fant missed about a month with, I forget if it was a hamstring or a groin injury, but he's been back for a couple games. So he's kind of settled back in. They're kind of about the same, but similar to Kraft, Fant has that edge where he is the main tight end. But it looks like rookie A.J. Barner could be the tight end of the future here Fant has, I think it's a team option this year. They can take him for a dead cap hit of about 4 million, which is basically the second half of his signing bonus from last year. So they love Fant. They're happy with him. But to be cost effective, we could see some more AJ Barner. That's next year's problem, not tonight's problem. But do know Barner showed out a little bit there with about 15 targets in the games. The 3 games that Fant missed, one of them was a bye week. So again, spreading everything out here. What do you like from the Seattle side?
I like it a lot from the Seattle side. It kind of reminds me of the Green Bay side, just in that it's really hard to differentiate between the pieces. I think just like the Green Bay side, Charbonnet is the top piece. He's the bell cow running back when Kenneth Walker's not available, and Walker's not available. He's good. He's very involved in the passing game. I think Charbonnet is the clear top answer. I mean, do you see it differently?
No, he is my number 2 play on the board. I was coin flipping between him and JSN. And I love me some DK Metcalf. So this is not recency bias. DK Metcalf is gigantic and he is fast. He has the speed to score from anywhere on the field. And he kind of makes linebackers nervous when he's got a full head of steam, let alone defensive backs here. So, but I agree. Kind of Charbonnet is where we are. Are we going to get what Charbs did last week? I doubt it. That was kind of the apex outcome there. I think he had like 22 carries for 130 or 120, whatever yards it was. Going to get about a 50-yard touchdown run. He brought in all 7 targets. This will be his 6th start of his career, if I remember correctly. All 6 of his touchdowns have come in 5 starts that he's had, if I remember correctly. It was a long time between now and 7:30 this morning when I was crawling through the Pro Football Reference game logs when I was writing my article, but I did find that to be of note. So I wanted to call that out. On the running back side, things are a little, there's not much after him. So you've got McIntosh, who is basically the running back too. He's a 7th round draft pick out of Georgia. This is his 2nd season. He's played in about 13 games. I want to say he had 7 targets last week for like 35 or 40 yards. He has, I think, 11 or carries. I think he has 11 or 13 carries for his career. So vast majority of his work came last week. So very, very careful there. And then George Alani, he was, if you played college football, you'll remember he was out of Boise State. He's an undrafted free agent. I believe he had 1 target. He played a couple snaps. So he is kind of the deep back. They did elevate someone off the practice squad, but I don't think that is going to be a consideration here for us to worry about. It looks like it's mostly going to be McIntosh backing up Charbonnet here. So McIntosh, and Brooks, they're kind of, again, we said mirror images all the way around, right? Slightly different plays. McIntosh probably get a little bit more running. Brooks a little more pass catching, but they're kind of the backups that are going to be on the field for about, McIntosh's case, probably 15 to 20% of the snaps. Brooks might get just a touch more on that, since he'll come in for Jacobs in true passing situations. But yeah, just mirror images here. The Green Bay defense, kind of the 2 weather games they had, I think, are masking what is. It's hard to tell if they have improved a lot or it just is happenstance, Matt, because they had Gibbs and Montgomery, right? So they played them last Thursday night. Each team played on Thanksgiving, but they had the full week off, so it wasn't a short game. But Gibbs and Montgomery got them for about 100 combined yards and about 60 combined receiving yards. I believe they each had a touchdown, if I remember correctly. Then you had Devin Achan, only 7 for 14 on the ground. He did have 56 yards through the air and a touchdown. You had Raheem Mostert only had 20 yards on the ground. He had about 15 through the air, so not as great on the ground. And then they shut down Christian McCaffrey prior to that, but now we know McCaffrey's kind of been playing hurt even when he's returned, or not playing effective until he did tweak his knee. But prior to that, they got eaten up by a bunch of teams. So I think that's probably the baseline, but now you've got a 6'1", 215-pound running back who can run between the tackles, who can be effective in the passing game. He just couldn't be a bell cow for the length of the season. Could he for tonight again after last week? Sure, don't have any issues with that. But part of the reason we're not seeing him regularly is he's not that kind of running back. So what he did last week truly was like a 95th percentile outcome, and we should dampen in Seattle. See what I did? Dampen our expectations.
Like it.
All right. Anything else on the offenses, or shall we talk a little special teams and then see what the tools are telling us here?
Yeah, let's talk some special teams. And just a quick add on. I think Green Bay's defense is for real. I mean,
okay.
The I was about to say the NL Central. I got baseball on my mind as always, but the NFC Central or the NFC North is really good. So you don't get any freebies in that division. Detroit and Minnesota are maybe the two best teams in the NFC record-wise. I think they are with Philly. So no freebies for Green Bay. I think their defense is good. Like, I think there's a reason they're a 3-point favorite here. I do think these teams are pretty similar, though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at basically any outcome.
All righty, let's look at the special teams here. So for Green Bay, so they have Brandon McManus. Remember, he was the longtime kicker there for Denver. He has bounced around a little bit, always been an outdoor kicker. Tonight shouldn't be that much of an issue for him. He is no bueno from beyond 50 yards. He probably should not be kicking from beyond 50 yards. And even when he was in Denver, he wasn't very good from beyond 50. Made his only one from beyond 50 this year. His only miss this year was in Green Bay. Detroit actually blocked a 46-yarder, if I remember correctly. But otherwise, he's been great from 45 and in for most of his career, right? So, hey, know your limitations, but he shouldn't have any issues tonight. You've got Myers on the other side for Seattle. He has been in the league, I want to say this is 10 years now. He has been with the last 6 in Seattle. He has made the Pro Bowl 2 different years. A different year besides that, he during the pandemic, he made all 24 of his field goal attempts, including a league-long 61-yarder. Didn't get any honors that year. And then last year, he led the league with 42 field goal attempts. That was not one of his Pro Bowl years. So he is an underrated kicker. Seattle is very fond of him, and they have a lot of trust in him, and they do let him kick from beyond 50 yards. So I like both those guys. They're both in my cash game lineup. On the defensive side, Seattle's around league average with 32 sacks. Green Bay only allowed 16 sacks. Only team that has allowed less than that is the Buffalo Bills, who have allowed 13. So the run-heavy approach, and Jordan Love doesn't give up a lot of sacks. He will throw picks, but he doesn't give up a lot of sacks. Seattle has 15 takeaways, but 11 of them are interceptions. When we turn things around to Green Bay, to your point, it's a pretty solid defense. My notes are last week, the 4 games prior to last week, Seattle had allowed 19 sacks. I said 15 earlier. It was 19. Last week, they allowed 1, and that was against Arizona, who got them for 5 2 weeks before. So again, they tried to change their blocking scheme a little bit, and they tried to change some of their approaches because they know they can't make it very far in the playoffs if they make the playoffs, if they have this offensive line issue. So they're trying to figure out how to scheme it away. Since they had 8 sacks against Tennessee in week 3, Green Bay has only had 22 sacks in the last 10 games. So while they are up there on the leaderboard, 8 of them came in that game. So that was kind of boosting their numbers. They do have the 3rd most turnovers with or takeaways with 24 this year, and the Seahawks have 19 turnovers. That's the bottom 10, or 10 most, if you will. So signs point to Green Bay. If this game was in Green Bay, we'd be fired up for Green Bay a little bit more. Now it's kind of a toss-up because you got the 12th man in Seattle, the crowd noise, no fantasy points for false starts, however, or delay of game.
Ooh, still, though, can definitely mess up the offense, but not too worried about it.
18 minutes to go here. That got us through the analysis. Let's see if we got any questions popping up here. I think most of the games have wrapped up. I don't have my scoreboard up, but we've got some more team free money EMac head-to-head lineups there in the DK lobby. Just $1 for Sunday Night Football. Have some fun. Take some money from your old pal. Donate it to the community as always. All right, who is your favorite captain? Is it going to be Jacobs or Charbonnet?
I think it's man, it's going to be Charbonnet just because
Okay,
of the discount from Jacobs. But I don't see a big like I like both of those guys. I think one of the running backs are my favorite captains. I don't have a strong preference of who, and I do think like you can captain the defenses on this slate. The salary savings could mean a lot. You know, one defensive score. This slate is pretty wide open.
it is. And full disclosure here, for those of you grabbing those team free money, I had to put Charbonnet in my captain. I said it was going to be Jacobs, but I'm going Charbs, Jacobs, JSN, Kraft, and both kickers. So there you go. Don't dupe me because it's no fun. You play that lineup against other people, just don't play it against me because DK just refunds our money. It's a tie. I don't want that. It's no fun. It's like kissing your cousin. Maybe you guys in Cleveland are into that, but I don't know. Anyway. Ha ha ha. See, there we go.
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.
Truth. That is the truth. All right. We don't like the Hunter.
How would you
Henry.
rank the Green Bay pass catchers?
Romeo Dobbs 1. I would put Kraft 2 because we have to count salary. Then I would go with Reed. Then I would go with Watson, and then I would go with Wicks. I'm curious Watson is the better deep ball player. We haven't seen that a lot this year. So I don't know if that was an Aaron Rodgers thing, trying to get him the rookie or whatever record they were going for in his last year. Then there was last year there was the hamstring issues because he's something about the bilateral issue of one leg stronger than this. I forget exactly what it was, but that was causing some hamstring issues. That seems to all be mitigated this year. So maybe they've kind of said, hey, we're going to take some of your routes out, or maybe not make you run them all the time because we'd rather have you on the field because you're a dangerous pass catcher. But when everybody's healthy, it's kind of hard to get there. One of these guys could break off a 40-yarder or score. Any one of them could. And that's what makes this crazy. Except for Kraft, but I think Kraft leads the team in touchdowns. He is either 6 or 7. It's right up there with Reed. So yeah, it is just very even. But to recap, Dobbs 1. Remember, he had a concussion, so everything else should be fine. They held him out for 2 games. Kraft 2, Reed, Watson, and then Wicks.
I dig it.
Let's see. Is it smart to play both defenses on FanDuel? I think in this game you can play both defenses on the same slate, but I would not do it if I was hand building a lineup. I also probably wouldn't do it until I got to about lineup 10, where I'd have both on the same team. I feel a little bit better about kickers. I obviously have both of them in my cash game lineup, but when you come to defenses, you're hoping the differentiator is a scoop and a score or a pick six. Could Geno Smith give up sacks? Yes, but remember, Green Bay, while they have a fair number of sacks, they don't blitz a lot. Geno Smith is very good at working the short passing game, obviously with his crazy completion percentage since he took over as the quarterback in Seattle. That, in theory, should limit sacks. It doesn't because the offensive line is so bad, but what it will do is limit sacks, coverage sacks, right? Which is what Green Bay gets. But they're without Jair Alexander, and I can't think of the name of their other safety who is out. But it's one of those where I think this is a game where they can scheme it a little quicker and not give up as many sacks as they have previously, which is the main reason. If this was against a blitz happy team like Minnesota, I'd have an entirely different answer, right? So that's kind of where we are in that. 13 minutes to go. I should probably kick off some Sims here. All right, what else? What is Dobbs captain ownership? I'll have to go take a peek at that. Let's see. Dobbs. Sunday La Beach. NFL Showdown. Single slate. Ownership. All right, let's find out for you guys. Dobbs is checking in at 26% overall, 4% captain on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is 21%, 1.4% MVP. So very limited. That could be your differentiator. The top captain on FanDuel right now via popularity is Geno Smith just a whisker ahead of Josh Jacobs, with Jordan Love and Zach Charbonnet rounding out the top five. The first two are right around 23%. The latter two are at 17 and 15. If we look at DraftKings, it is Sharbs, who is number one with 18%, followed by Jacobs at 13, and then Smith and JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is Smith and JSN are both at 11. So kind of condensed there. DK Metcalf at 9.9. So that's a little more condensed than we've seen on a few slates. I believe that was also how Thursday Night Football was.
It makes sense. There's so many good players. And yeah, Thursday night was similar because there were also so many good players.
Indeed. All right, let me get this running here.
This is even more so than Thursday night, considering McCaffrey didn't play. But I guess because McCaffrey was out, you had a cheaper Garendo.
Yeah, but with those question marks of how much is he going to play? How hurt is he? What's going to happen with that foot?
Yeah, this slate's like even more jumbled than that slate. Like there's more good players in this game than even that game. The Rams fit like the Packers and Seahawks, and that they have a bunch of good options. The difference with the Rams is that like they don't really go to anyone else besides their main three.
Very true. Very true. All right, points here. I wanted to pop somebody's points by a little bit now, and I can't remember who it was. Oh, I wanted to move Brooks up by 1 click, and McIntosh up by 1 click, and Barner up by 1 click. Just because I have not been getting some of these guys down at the bottom when I play my 100 lineups, since I'm doing this on the fly, on the show. But you know what? I have been profitable. It is always good getting the profits. If we have a good Zach Charbonnet game tonight, I will do pretty well on Yahoo, Matt. This is the portion where I talked about my Yahoo lineup. $1,700 profit last week, and that was with Will Dissly getting hurt after one measly catch. I'll take it. $1,700 is a lot of money. That allows you to play on the secret site with plenty of basketball contests, which is always fun. If you guys want fun over there, play in their leagues. You can play in leagues that like are 4 days, 10 days, 100 days, whatever they are. For football, you could still get in them for week 16, 17, 18, and then through the playoffs. You can drop your lowest score in some formats. You can keep it all, but it's fun. It's the DFS every single way. That is if you are a good player, you can just keep pushing your edge, and usually 1 or 2 people forget to set one of their lineups and take a 0. So that's like rake free. Just putting a few tricks out there to put a few shekels in your pocket as we head towards the high holidays. Who are you terrified of not having enough of in your lineups tonight, Matt?
Probably DK Metcalf. I've got a decent amount in captain. Like I'm over the field in captain. I'm under in flex though. Kind of like that. Like if he has a monster game, I'm over the field there. But if not, yeah, but I don't know. Like I probably wouldn't do that myself, but that's what the Sims have given me. So I'm going to say DK Metcalf. I'm going to say just kind of all the receivers in general. I'm under the field on Metcalf, Lockett, Watson, and Reed. And I'm only really over the field on Wicks and JSN. I'm like a little bit over the field. So yeah, playing a lot of the running games, the defenses, tight ends. So we'll see how that goes for me.
I'm getting excited. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch here. All right, let's
totally agree.
Favorite our top 100 and see what we have. This is where I should be sharing my screen. So Zach Charbonnet coming in at 60%, 27% captain. I feel like that's a bit rich. I'm going to match the field. I'm going 17% because I don't think he's going to do what he did last week. I'm going with 15% on Geno. I'm going with 15% on Njigba. I like what you're saying there with Metcalf. I'm going to push some things his way. I like the Josh Jacobs. I'm slightly under the field, so I will give him a little boost to get a little bit more. And we will go with that. Let's see how that changed things. This is how it's fun. This is how quickly you can do this here.
I can't help but when I see DK Metcalf, just think of Deebo Samuel and how, man, Deebo looks dusty these days. And DK Metcalf, I don't want to say they're the same player. DK is, I think, a better actual receiver, not as like bulldozery as Deebo, but they're pretty damn similar. And both of them have had down years. So like I feel like with these kind of guys, once it goes quickly.
But DK, has he been in the league as long? I mean, I guess he has.
I mean,
pretty
must
close.
be. I feel like
maybe
I think
1 year less.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up right now. All right, DK Metcalf is 27.
It's about the same as Deebo. I think Deebo's 28.
He was drafted in 2019. Deebo is 28 and was drafted in 2019
as well.
19. Yeah, so they're like the same age. And again, I do think like Metcalf is a better receiver and more athletic and doesn't rely on like just the brute strength Deebo does, but Metcalf does rely on that.
Don't make me sad. I'm hoping for several more years.
Man, I love Deebo too. I should say love. He's hard to root for these days.
Yeah, I was thinking more DK Metcalf. I do like Deebo. It was always fun to say Red 19, but of course he did change his number back to
the
1,
number
which is what he had in college. Fun story on that one. When you change your number in the NFL, you have to petition to do it, and you got to wait a year. Otherwise, you have to. I forget if it's you got to pay like
buy all the merchandise
to buy. I can't remember if it's all of them or they cap it at a certain point, but it's pretty much they're not they're going to make you be on the hook for those. All right, my lineups are up with 6 minutes to go. Jordan, what's going on? That your internet didn't break? My lineups are in. Chat isn't throwing rotten fruit at me just yet. I bet somebody's going to be mad at me, right? Macintosh or Fant? I would go with Fant, projecting him for just under 4 targets. Macintosh, I think, is live to get more carries than targets. Carries are less valuable when you're only going to be on the field a little bit, and no red zone touches for him, most likely, unless something happens with Charbonnet. Brandon McCourt. Does EMac get his lineups in pulling? No, I'm ahead of the game. So there we go. Sotex, he's so toxic. Always throwing the fruit in the chat. Thank you there. Dobbs or Watson? I'm gonna go with Dobbs, but I think that's where the crowd will likely end up. It's still relatively even though, or evenly dispersed.
Yeah, I don't have a strong take here. I think Watson has higher upside. Dobbs is a higher floor. So kind of depends what you're looking for. And I'll reiterate, like for me, this is a good multi-entry type slate. There's just a lot of good plays. So I'm kind of just going to play with the Sims Phoebe. I'm not single entering tonight.
All right. Lockett or Fant in cash. I ended up with basically I had them ranked right next to each other, and I lean towards Fant, and it says he has the clear edge over Lockett since he has the edge over Lockett since he is the clear tight end 1. I said Lockett is interesting on DraftKings at 4,000, FanDuel at 9,500. No, thank you. Malcolm Revamp says, is JSN a must on FanDuel? I have him as a top 3 play, so I would call that a core play, borderline must play. I don't know that there really are must plays here, but I think he has 2 touchdown upside, and I think you can say that about him. Jacobs, Charbonnet, Metcalf are really the ones,
and
Reed have the best chances. I think 2 of them have multiple touchdowns this season. It doesn't mean they're going to get there, but they are in a position where they get the high value touches where something like that is a possible outcome. Right. Versus other players were like, no, they can get there strictly on volume because they're going to get the touches in XYZ situation. These guys, the way that their teams like to scheme plays for each of them respectively inside the red zone does afford them the opportunity to get 2 touchdowns. So I will say pretty sure a must. Let's call it a must, but not a lock. We have 3 minutes to go here. I want to look at Discord because I know somewhere Greg Ehrenberg notices there's a disturbance in the force, and I haven't looked there. Haha, nobody asked me any questions because they only ask Greg questions in the Discord. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see what else we can find for everybody. I had a pub sub at 4 o'clock, so I don't think I'll be having dinner tonight. Only half of one. Have you ever had a pub sub from Publix?
I have. My wife is a sub connoisseur, and we're in Florida a lot. So a couple of years ago, she was, on pub sub TikTok, and this tell we have to go. We have to go to Publix to get a sub. And yeah, she overhyped it, but it was really good.
I think they're good. My wife doesn't get it with bacon, and she doesn't get it with, I don't know, the ranch on it or whatever. So I like it when I get it. Man, when you go to Publix, it is a shit show there in their kitchen area. If they were efficient, they would just crank these things out. But instead, it takes 15 minutes per order, and you can't order early. You can order early, but they won't start it until you're there.
It's annoying. You can't call it in. I will say I'm not a huge sub guy, but my favorite sub place is Jersey Mike's.
Okay. Yeah, my wife and I usually split one because basically they put 7 giant chicken tenders in each thing.
Yes, so. They're huge. Yeah, I think we got a buffalo chicken tender one. I think that's with the.
Yeah, that's one of the three top ones.
It was good.
There. So yeah, anyway, that's what I have for lunch. But I was like, oh, now with this coffee, I'm kind of feeling full again.
The thing is, I was very hesitant, and I still am. Publix is a fine grocery store, but it's not that nice. I don't. I just would never think about going to Publix to get a sub. That said, I tried it and it was solid.
It's it's good to go because they're the main shopping chain around here, so that's usually where we end up. But it's fun in the summer because then you can just take them out on the beach or whatever. It's much easier. So there we are. All right, we are at lock. Nice. I'm looking forward to this one. Whew, this will be a good one, Matt. So I'm rooting for Charbonnet, both for my main slate lineups there on FanDuel and Yahoo, and then also for my DFS lineups tonight. So this should be a fun one here. I'm hanging on to some cashes. I didn't quite break even on DK mains. I went with Josh Allen again, and can you believe he allowed the other running back to score 2 touchdowns, and he didn't throw a touchdown to himself? What the hell?
Yeah, he still had a pretty good game though.
So in any event, did not have Brian Thomas Jr., which sucks. But anyway. With that, we're going to slide on out of here. Thank you to Jordan Klein for producing the show. You guys can follow Matt on Twitter at FantasyTipsMatt. You can find me at EMac DFS. And of course, it is Stokastic _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.